Welcome to the demo of the UCLA cost transfer tool. Before we get started, there are a couple things I wanted to mention. First of all, I'm going to be demoing from the test environment. So when those of you get into the live environment, this might look a little bit different from what we see in that live environment for a couple of reasons. So first of all, I've been provisioned with access to all of the roles in the system for testing purposes, but it is pretty unlikely that we would have one person that would have access to all of these roles. So when you log in, you might see just this part and this, or maybe just the project manager part. Maybe you're set up with access to both of these. There are a couple different options for how these will be provisioned in the future, but it probably won't look exactly like this. The other thing I wanted to note is that any of the data that you see in the forms that we're going to go through in the demo, we are using mock data for all of our testing. And so the information in here is probably going to look pretty different from what you will actually see when we get into the live environment. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with our demo. The first thing I wanted to note is when people log in, when users log in, they will come to a home screen that will look something like this. We are going to be using tiles here for navigation. I think in the current system, we use more of a hyperlink functionality. So we are updating the system functionality to use these tiles, and you can see them kind of moving every time I mouse over each one. For the different types of functionality in the cost transfer tool, first of all, we have these darker blue tiles for creating cost transfers. We also have our approval workflow tiles here for the different approval roles. We've got our financial unit manager tiles here with light blue, project manager with green, EFM with orange, and finally we have this red tile for the audit reports. Now, if we go ahead and click into one of these, if I click into cost transfer here, it's going to take me to this screen. I have two options for searching for transactions. So I have one option here for looking for COA transactions that were on the general ledger, and I have another option here for searching for POET-AF transactions that are on the PPM subledger. For demo purposes today, we're just going to stick with the COA chart string here. And to search, you can enter specific information here. We also have the option to use this filter, apply filters button here. You can see there are lots of options in here. For our purposes though, because I have a limited data set to work with, I'm going to go ahead and select October 3rd and click search. And it's going to run, and then this is what it lists out. These are all of the transactions in our mock data set for October 3rd. And I can scroll through these and select one of the line items. I have the option to select multiple if I wanted to, but for demo purposes, we're just going to select this one. And once I've selected one, these subtotals down here at the bottom of the screen will update to reflect the total amount of everything we've selected. So you hopefully saw the COA total changing here, but I'm just going to go ahead and use just this one. When I'm ready, I'm going to click Selected Transactions down here at the bottom of the screen, and this is going to pop up. And if I had selected multiple transaction lines, they would all show up in here, but this is basically just an additional step to say, is this the stuff that you want to adjust? And so if I confirm that that is correct, I'm going to click Create Transfer. And it brings me to this form. So the first thing I'd want to do is fill out this basic information. It's going to pre-populate my name, my email address, and today's date for the effective date. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here, and I can see this is the chart string that I had selected with the transaction amount that I had selected. We also have these fields down here for entering the justification reasons for the transfer, and we have the ability here to upload additional documentation or backup. So once I start adding this information, I have the option to add multiple lines to split this 216.99 out to multiple locations. It can also be split out to multiple COA strings on the general ledger and multiple POET-AF strings in the PPM subledger. So say I've filled out a bunch of this information. And maybe I know that I'm going to end up having 10 different places that this $216 needs to be split out to. But I only know what 6 of those chart strings are right now. So I can come in here and fill out as much information as I have for my, for all of these text fields, and then also for the chart strings. Say I only know 5 of them. And then what I can do is I can click on the save button and it'll put it into a saved queue. So it'll be there for me when I want to come back to it and say, I know now what the other 5 chart strings are that I want to add. So I can click back into it and add that additional information. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if I click back here on home, so that was basically the basic functionality for creating a cost transfer. If I come over here to the dashboard, this is where I can see all of the transactions that I've worked on. And right now I only have 2 that are in my saved queue. So if I click on this, so I can see the basic information here, and then I've got an option to click here for edit. So this pulls up one that I had created before. I don't have any other chart string information, so now I can start adding that information if I wanted to here. And I can update or add more information for my justification questions. I can attach more documentation if I want to. And if I'm still not done, I can click save and it'll resave it with all of that information and put it back into that saved queue. Or if I do have everything and I'm ready to submit it, then I would click submit transfer. And that's what would start the approval workflow in the system. I click back on home and I'm back on my home page. I wanted to take a look now at the approver screens that you will see if you have an approver role. And I would just note that these are all going to be more or less the same in terms of what it looks like visually for this role, and this role. So I'll go into a little bit more detail on the financial unit manager. And then what I'll do is I'll just point out what's different between these screens, and then the project manager and EFM accountant functionality for screens. So just like with cost transfer, our button here or our tile here on the left is going to be where we would go to take action on something. And our dashboard is where we can see a full list of all of the things that we either have taken action on in the past or are maybe waiting for us to take some action. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on here to review cost transfers. And it's going to show me all of the items that are currently in my queue that require me to do something, to take an action. And so I would have a list here. If I had many items on here, I have the option to search for something specific. But we have 5 options here. So I'm just going to click here on approve reject. And what it does is it brings me in here to this screen and I can see the basic information, who submitted it, when, a description, how I can contact that person. And then if I scroll down further, I can see the transaction information. So this is where the original transaction happened. This is where they want to move it. And then I can read down here and see what the justification reasons were that were provided, what attachments. I can open up these to see what the backup is. And once I feel I have enough information, then what I would do is I would select this and I would either say, yes, this is approved, or nope, this is rejected. And once I click those, that's what moves all of these through. So there's a thing up here to say confirm. I'm not going to monkey around with her entry right now. So I'm going to just click back and it takes me back here to my queue. So the dashboard, if I click here on this tile, it's going to bring me in here. And I've got my list of all the transactions that I've approved and all the transactions that I've rejected. And if I want to see more information, like say I'm here on the approved side and somebody goes, hey, do you remember that thing that you approved for me 4 weeks ago? I could come in here and I could look for the date that I submitted it. If they're saying it was 4 weeks ago, I could look for that particular date, or if they know a specific transfer ID number, then we could use that to search up here in the search field. Otherwise, we'll have just a list of all of that information here. We can click on any of these hyperlinks here to go in and see more information on that transaction. So basic information, transaction details, what the status is, and then all of the justification information and any backup that was attached. So we'll go back here and go home. And so the functionality that you saw here for reviewing cost transfers and then also for the dashboard is basically going to be the same, essentially the same for the EFM approver and the project manager approver. I'll show you what's going to be a little bit different though. So transactions that are charged to a grants project have to go through an additional level of evaluation against some specific criteria to determine if they are high risk or not. And so that happens automatically. We have a validation behind the scenes that will let everyone know if something is marked for high risk. And so the difference here that the project manager approval screen would see versus what the financial unit manager would see on their dashboard, they just had approved and rejected. This one has an additional column for pending EFM. And so this is where we'd be able to see any transactions that have been flagged as high risk. And so if I click on view here, this will bring me into the information. So I can see basic information here, the transaction information here, and then pending high risk that this has been flagged. Bright red, and there's a little triangle here with an exclamation point. We can still go in and see what all the explanation information is and any attachments that have been added as backup. But that's going to be the biggest difference between the project manager role and the financial unit manager role is this pending EFM. Finally, I'm going to come over here to reports. And we have what's called an audit report in here. And basically, this is just going to provide us with a way to search for all transactions, regardless of what the status is for each one. So if I come over here to apply filters and I say date submitted is April 4th, it's going to list all of the transactions that were submitted on April 4th. Regardless of what their status is. So you can see here, I've got a status of approved, these are pending, I've got one that's denied and another one that's completed. So I can see all of the information for all of these different types of transactions. And if I want more detail, I can click in here to view. And it will give me more of the information on what happened with this particular transaction. Then we have this additional button here for view audit log. If I click on that, that's going to bring me over here so I can see the log of transaction detail that happened for this particular transfer. So first I can see when this was submitted for review and who by and what time, when it was approved. Then we have a separate audit log for any documentation that's attached to each of these. Click back to audit reports and then home. That concludes our demo of the cost transfer tool. Please keep an eye out for invitations to our upcoming roadshow sessions where we'll be able to go into a lot more detail and do much more detailed demos on all of this functionality in the future. We'll have several of them set up over the next 5 to 6 months. Thank you so much.